Hello, welcome to an episode of What the F. Now, this is actually part 2 from last week's video, and the topic last week was Superman. Now, in that part, I covered some of the back history of the character and why I love the character so much. And in this week's episode, I thought in part 2 I would cover the recent Man of Steel movie and the recent announcement that was made at the San Diego Comic Con. Now, I'm aware that some of you probably haven't seen Man of Steel, so here's your warning. And back to the rant. Now, Man of Steel is basically a reboot, not a sequel in the Superman franchise. And it basically tells the story of Superman, born on Krypton, sent to Earth when Krypton was destroyed, and he grows up on Earth and becomes Superman. Now, what differs between Man of Steel and the Superman movies of the late 70s, early 80s is point number one. In the 1978 movie, they established that Superman gets his powers from Earth's yellow sun. And they don't really go into detail on that. They just say Earth's yellow sun gives him his abilities. And it was always people always thought, well, look, he's an alien. Of course, Earth's sun might have a different effect on him. But in Man of Steel, they get more scientific, more realistic. The director, Zack Snyder, said that's what he was going for, more realistic Superman. And in Man of Steel, on Krypton, people aren't babies, aren't born anymore, they're grown. It's a genetically enhanced society and has been for centuries. And Jor-El, Superman's biological father, played by Russell Crowe, breaks with that tradition and he conceives a child naturally with his wife Lara. And the start of the movie, we see Superman born. Well, he's Kal-El, he's not Superman yet, his name is Kal-El. We see Kal-El born, and then as Jor-El is trying to convince the elders of Krypton to save the planet because they've been using the planet's core for fuel and now it's become unstable, Zod bursts in, tries to take over the government. And Jor-El does a runner because he doesn't agree with him, and he steals something called the Codex, which is the DNA template for all people made on Krypton. Because again, they're grown to be scientists or scholars or warriors in the case of Zod. And basically, then what happens is he takes that Codex and he puts it through some kind of technological process in the movie. He puts the DNA of all Krypton into Kal-El and then sends him off before the planet explodes. And then he arrives on Earth and he grows up, but he doesn't go straight to the Daily Planet. Like in the movie, Clark Kent discovers the Fortress of Solitude, where he's told by the ghostly image of his dad who he is and what he is, and then he goes from there to the Daily Planet. Now in Man of Steel, they don't do that. In Man of Steel, they see Clark Kent just become a bit of a hobo, a bit of a homeless person. Not necessarily homeless, but he's a bit of a wanderer. He goes from place to place taking odd jobs. He doesn't stick around, but he always saves people. Whenever there's an emergency, he always gets involved. And there's a bit of a myth about this mysterious traveler who helps people. And that's what Lois Lane hears about. Lois Lane hears about that, starts investigating. Then you see Clark Kent discovering the ship, not the Fortress of Solitude, it's a spaceship that's buried under ice, where he's able to discover who he is and what he's meant to do. And then it just carries Andre forward from there. General Zod has escaped from the Phantom Zone, comes to Earth, and wants to just wreak havoc and cause badness in general. So that's a brief synopsis of the movie. Again, I'm not going to tell the end because, again, I know I gave spoilers, but the spoilers are for the details that I'm going to talk about, which I'll talk about now. And the spoilers that I'm talking about in reference to are problems that I have. Again, no movie is perfect. No movie is perfect by any means. There's always going to be problems, especially when you're dealing with something as iconic as Superman. I mean, I hyped this movie up so much in my mind. It was never going to meet my expectation. Anytime there were images or clips or trailers or anything related to Man of Steel, I posted links online on the Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on any social media that I'm a part of. I posted it all. It was never going to meet my expectations, but I did love the movie. I thought it was great, but it was never going to meet my high expectations. Not in a million years. But again, I had problems with it. My first problem is there's Lois knows who Clark Kent is. One of the great things about the old movies was that you'd see Lois sometimes belittling Clark Kent. She'd be like, "Oh, don't slouch, stand straight up, be more confident, be like Superman." And it was always funny because it was like, "Oh, she doesn't know that is Superman." She's taking the mick out of. And that was a funny aspect to the Lois and Clark relationship. The fact that she didn't know who he was, even though so I mean it was a bit silly even as a kid. You'd be like, "Geez, it's just glasses." He takes the glass. If you saw him without the glasses, you'd know who he was. Even with the glasses on, you'd know who he was. But in this movie, they don't do that. In this movie, Superman, Clark Kent, he's not Superman yet, saves Lois when she's hurt. She enters the spaceship that Clark finds under the ice, and she's attacked by some kind of security robot that Clark destroys, and then heals Lois with his heat vision because she's bleeding, and he stops the bleeding with that. So I didn't like that she now knows from the outset all the other all whatever sequels come from that, she's gonna know who he is. There's gonna be no kind of humor. That's a little bit of the humor in that in Superman Lost. Second beef is the fact that we never see the Kents find it. And in Superman, in the first Superman movie in 1978, we see the Kents, Jonathan and Martha, find him. They're driving along. They see explosion. They look down in the ditch. They see a naked child. Jonathan Kent is trying to fix the car. The car nearly falls on him, but Clark is picking it up. So, and we never see that. We never see we never see that kind of thing. I mean, in Man of Steel, there are flashbacks to him as a child and growing up and dealing with like bullies and stuff. Because again, he could do real damage, but he knows he can't because he could really hurt them, maybe even kill them. But they don't show the Kent's finding it. There's a sequence where you see the rocket arriving on Earth, and you see it getting ready to crash onto the farm, but you never see, you don't see Jonathan and Martha emerge from the house going, "What happened? What happened?" You don't see that, and I always love that bit where you see him as a baby and they find him. They didn't show that, and I didn't like that. The third beef is the destruction. The destruction done to Metropolis and his home and Clark's hometown of Smallville was a bit heavy-handed. Now I know they're Kryptonians and they all have the same powers because that's what happens. The bad Kryptonians come to Earth and they have the same abilities he does. So I thought it was a bit heavy-handed because they pretty much destroy Smallville and destroy. I mean, when you see Metropolis after the fight, after the fight with Zod, and after the ship has wrecked its destruction on the city, it looks like an atomic bomb went off. It just looks it would be kind of disingenuous in the next movie if everything's all shiny and new again. And Superman was never that violent. There was never that huge, massive destruction in the Superman movies, or in any of the Superman at all. It was just kind of I thought it was a bit heavy-handed. It wasn't really the spirit of Superman that we all know, which is like he's a moral character. He doesn't cross the line. Which brings me to my final problem and the biggest problem. Now this is the hugest spoiler. So if you watch beyond the spoiler alert I gave, you've seen the movie, so I have no problem mentioning this. Superman kills General Zod. They have a huge fight at the end. Zod is about to kill some innocent people. Superman has his hand, has him in a kind of a bear hug, I guess you could say, and has his arm around his neck, and is begging Zod, don't do it, don't stop, please. And in the end, he just snaps his neck. And again, that broke one of the crucial rules of Superman. Superman never kills, and that was the first time I'd ever seen him do anything like that. And I was kind of, Jesus, that was a big shock, because again, Superman's a very hopeful character, a very moral character who believes in the good of people, even when they're bad. He believes there's the potential for good, but he just outright snaps Zod's neck, and I didn't like that. But I was able to enjoy the movie primarily because of advice I've been given to people who haven't seen it. I was telling people, like my brother was going to see it, and I told him, I said, listen, don't go see this movie if with Christopher Reeve or whatever image of Superman you have in your head, because this Superman, Henry Cavill's Superman, is completely different to any Superman who has come before. It's completely different, and it's it's just that's the advice I've been giving to people. That's the advice I give to you. But I would imagine you've not watched beyond this spoiler alert, because again I've just revealed that. Now it's like I've spoken to people who don't like the movie, and for some of the reasons I've just outlined. But I think the reason some people don't like the movie is because they compare it to Christopher Reeve or whoever was Superman in their childhood, and again they're completely different. And that's the advice I've given to everybody. Like for instance, my nephew, he's 11 years old. He loved this movie because it's not the Superman that he grew up with. He didn't really grow up with Superman. His thing was Batman. But he loved this movie, and that's his Superman. Henry Cavill will be his Superman, and just like Christopher Reeve was mine. And people who have never heard, really, geez, everyone's heard of Superman, but people who aren't really Superman fans or who were never aware of Superman before will love this movie because they don't have the history of it in their head. They don't have the expectations like I did. Again, I still love the movie, but again, it's definitely not the Superman I grew up with. It was a good movie. I loved it. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention was the question everyone's asking: what's next? What can we expect from a sequel? Well, an announcement was made at the recent San Diego Comic Con, which is the mother, king, queen of all conventions. I haven't been to it. I might go sometime, but I haven't been to it yet. And they held a panel there where Zack Snyder was there, and so was Henry Cavill. And they were asked, what's the future? And Zack Snyder brought onto the stage one of the actors from the movie, a guy called Harry Lennox. He played the character of General Swanwick. And he read a passage from a graphic novel. I won't say what it is yet, but he read a passage from a graphic novel that said to the effect, I want you to remember, Clark, in all the years to come and all your most private moments, I want you to remember my hand at your throat. I want you to remember the one man who beat you. And any geek out there who's worked their way in gold knows what that is. It's a quote from a graphic novel, a specific one. And then the lights went out apparently in the hall, and on the screen was the Superman symbol, and surrounding it was the symbol for Batman. Because the quote you just heard me say was from a graphic novel from the 80s called The Dark Knight Returns. And one of the key points in that graphic novel, it's fantastic, is a fight between Batman and Superman, because Batman's become too aggressive in his tactics and the government sends Superman in to sort them out. And everyone just went apeshit. They went like, oh god. And when I heard that, I was like, oh yes, I couldn't believe it. It's going to be a great film because they recently did an animated movie of the Dark Knight Returns graphic novel. It was fantastic, and it was just the live action movie. I mean, personally, no, I would have preferred actually if Henry Cavill had another solo movie as Superman before they did this Superman Batman mashup. But still, I can't wait. I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great. And there's been speculation about, who's going to be Batman? Because Christian Bale, who played Batman in Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises, He's been pretty insistent he's not being Batman again. So there's been speculation, who's going to be the Batman this time? And these are the guys who are currently speculation surrounds these guys. These are the names of guys they've mentioned so far. Tyler Hoechlin, Ryan Gosling, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Michael Fassbender, Jake Gyllenhaal, Chris Pine, and Armie Hammer. Now, the actors in that list, the one I pick is, I think, probably Michael Fassbender. Because, again, he's a great actor. He has experience in the comic book genre. He's young Magneto in the new X-Men films. And he's just a great actor in general. He's Irish too, but, again, I'm not I'm not being a favoritist in that sense. But he's a great actor, and it would be a great choice. I could see him as Batman. He'd be a good choice, and I don't know. I'm just excited about that film, and I can't wait to see what they come up with. Right. Well, that's the end of that video. I reckon ranted on for too long again. So I hope you've watched this till the end, and take care, and I'll be back next week with a new topic. Bye.